You're listening to the Sticks in the Six podcast. Here are your co-hosts, Andrew Forbes, Peter Barricini, and Alex Houghton.
Good afternoon, early evening. I don't know where it's kind of in that middle ground here, Peter. But welcome to episode 186 of the Sticks in the Six podcast. I'm your host Andrew, here with my co-host Peter. We have some good news, we have some bad news, we have some questionable news. We got
all kinds of news today.
We got all kinds of Maple Leafs news this week.
We are set for that.
We are absolutely. As always, brought to you by the fine folks at the Hockey Podcast Network. Proud member of that family, and DraftKings and Indy Ale House as well. Peter, how you doing this week, my friend?
It's going good, and like you said, usually it's either good morning or good evening. Now it's like good afternoon. It's like we're trying to compete purposely with the guys from Overdrive right now, so we want to try and challenge them a little bit at this time slot. But going good. Obviously it's been a rough week Leaf wise, but that's why we're here to talk about it, because there's a lot to get off our plate right now.
Yeah, it's been a week. It's been a week. That's one way to put it. We'll have a little bit from their post game comments. We'll have a little bit of how the week's gone play wise. We got a lot to talk about. Possible incoming new members to the roster. Possible trade opportunities that we might see arising as the deadline nears. But before we get into all of that, shout out to friend of the show, Gavin Bryant.
Yes.
This guy committed. Mm-hmm. Well, it came out today. He committed earlier this week, but he committed today to Sacred Heart in Connecticut, NCAA. This kid's going the NCAA route. I love it. This whole new road for these players, for these overagers that are coming out of the O and coming out of the CHL, and now they're getting the opportunities to go to the NCAA. This is a huge opportunity for Gavin Bryant, going from Peterborough to Sacred Heart. And I want to make a quick note here as well. If you've been, I know you do because you're a big prospects guy, but if you've been keeping an eye on the CHL standings, on the OHL standings, you'll know this. Before the trade in which Peterborough made to get Gavin Bryant, they had 0 wins on the season. I believe they were like 0-16-1 or something like that, with 1 point in the standings. Okay, it was an awful year. It was it was just terrible. Outside of all the bullshit that happened in Niagara, we won't even get into that. I think we talked a little bit about it a couple months ago before, or when the trade happened. But outside of all the bullshit that's happened in Niagara with the Ice Dogs, they seem to remain at the top of their conference, 1-2, kind of bouncing back and forth. I think the culture shift in there with moving a guy like Gavin Bryant, who is obviously a leader. He's a leader within the community. He's a leader within the room. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to affect them come playoff time. I think you're going to see them make an early exit. That's just my personal opinion. Now, I want to jump back to Peterborough, who made that move, got an overager who, had off-season shoulder surgery, had a terrible go with recovery when it comes to that. And this guy maintained a positive attitude. He came to the rink. He met with the Peterborough Petes as soon as he got traded there. He gave it his all to get back on the ice. And now he's back on the ice, and this team is 9 points out of a playoff spot right now. 9 points out of a playoff spot after starting the year 17 games in, or whatever it was, with a goose egg in that win column. They are 9 points out. There's still, let's say, a third of the season to go, so a lot of time to make up that room. He's got 15 points in 25 games, 8 goals. But I think the most important thing out of all of this is, as it stands right now, if they were to jump into that 8th seed, which is held by Dave Cameron's Ottawa 67s, and we all know he has a history of not winning things, the Peterborough Petes would take on the Niagara Ice Dogs in the first round of the playoffs. So,
a lot of bad blood there.
I believe they call that poetic justice.
Yep.
Right? Poetic justice. So
That is one of those instances where Gavin is definitely going to want to make a statement.
Oh, I think he would.
I think that's like written in the stars right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're not going to get into the theoreticals of the OHL playoffs and what could be and what might be, but I just wanted to make note of a big time player who has had a rough go in certain aspects of his OHL career, including the injury front, and somehow he's jumped into his third team and he's making a difference in that room as well. And they're 9 points out of the playoffs. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the Petes. I'm excited for Mike Oak, their GM, who I'm still working on trying to get on here to talk about that trade. But I'm also pumped to see him go the NCAA route, go to Sacred Heart. I tweeted out earlier this week that he had committed to an NCAA school. I tweeted out again today that it was Sacred Heart, and I tweeted out that I would love to make a 6 in the 6 road trip down to Connecticut to see Gavin play next season as a member of the Sacred Heart team. So very pumped for him. Shout out to Gavin. Shout out to his family for the support they've given him, and shout out to Gavin's Corner that helps with. It's inviting kids or people with diabetes to the games and raising awareness, and shout out to him for making that kind of difference in the community as well. Just like I said, leader inside and outside the room. But that all said, Peter, we're here to talk about one specific team 90% of the time, right? 90% of the time.
Maybe 95.
95. So again, before we get into like the notes that we have there, I want to tell you about this. I was reading through this Maple Leafs Facebook group, and sometimes I just read through the comments just to see what people are saying. You know how Leafs Nation is. We can get very hostile at times.
Just for the laughs, right?
Just for the laughs. Anyways, there was a comment made about Nylander came out recently and sported his Swedish gear that he's going to be wearing at the Four Nations Cup. Obviously, his dad, Michael Nylander, Swedish. His mom, Swedish. I mean, they're all Swedish, right? Like, let's be serious. That said, William Nylander does have Canadian background as well, with his dad having been playing in Calgary at the time of his birth. So the comment was that they felt it was very disheartening that he's not getting in touch with his Canadian heritage and playing for Team Canada rather than playing for Sweden.
Oh my God.
So I know my take on it. I love the comments that were in there because some of them were for, some were against. I want like I can see a reaction, but why would this guy ever play for Team Canada? Why would he not support the nation in which that he was brought into this world by, right? His parents are Swedish. Why would he not play for the blue and yellow?
Yeah, I know you saw my reaction there. I'm like, so we're going down that route, right? Okay. Yeah, he's got dual citizenship. He was born in Canada. He has that. But when he grew older, he had every right to play wherever he wanted to play. He grew up, when his dad retired, they went back to Sweden because they were moving all over North America. When he went to Sweden, so did his family. That's basically his upbringing. That's where his dad grew up. Who wouldn't want to play in Sweden, where that's where his lineage is? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer because of the fact that he played his junior hockey there. He played in the SHL at times, got drafted out of there, played with his dad in the SHL as well. So, I mean, why wouldn't he play for Sweden? And not only that, he's already represented them internationally because of it, so he can't go back on that right now. But yeah, it's Facebook, man. It's definitely a wormhole to go down, basically.
I'm trying to find the comment now, but
yeah,
I don't know if I'll be able to find it. It was a couple days back, and I made note of it in my head because I was like, this might be the dumbest thing I've ever read in my entire life.
It's totally fine. And you can say the same with other players that like have American upbringing but played for Canada and vice versa. I mean, they got dual nationality, they got dual citizenship, but it's ultimately on them. And not only that too, I mean, hypothetically, if Nylander did play for Canada, I mean, look how deep Canada is as well. Like, he's going to be on top line for Sweden. If he was playing for Canada, he would probably be on like third, fourth line, basically in a major tournament like that, possibly pushing like the second line. But with Team Sweden, he's going to be on the top line. He's going to be their go-to guy, and rightfully so. He's a very talented player, goal scorer, playmaker, you name it. He's very dynamic in that aspect, and he's one of Sweden's top players for a reason. I don't understand why this is an issue. Yeah, he was born in Calgary. Yeah, he has some Canadian citizenship, but at the same time, if he spent most of his time growing up and playing in Sweden, that's where he spent the most of the time. And hang on, I'm just going to search up Michael Nylander's playing history as well, because so for better parts of basically, yeah, okay, so 5 seasons, yeah, he played in Calgary, but then he moved on to Tampa Bay, Chicago, Washington. After that, he was basically in and out, like moving from city to city as well. So you could say the same thing. Oh, why isn't he playing for Team America? Because his dad had to get some American citizenship as well. No, to play there.
Yeah, I believe the difference being that because Nylander was William Nylander was technically born in Canada, he technically carries a Canadian citizenship as well,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. Like, it really does. But at the same time, it's like I really can't believe we're having this conversation right now, but it's just absolutely dumb that people are actually going to think that, oh yeah, you should be playing for Canada because he was born here. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's up to him to choose where he wants to represent his country, and Sweden is definitely it. So
yeah, I had to laugh about it. Like, I had to bring it up because I wanted to see your reaction on it. I read it.
Oh, you saw my reaction, so
it was a longer post. I read the start, and I'm like, okay, well, where is this going? Because it started talking about him being born in Calgary and whatever else, and like in my head, I was like, okay, where's this going? And I eventually got to the I guess the punchline, and it was yeah. Anyways, it's not a conversation I ever wanted to have, obviously, but it's one that I thought was worth noting. So that if by some chance that this person who posted that comes across this podcast one day, I hope they realize how stupid they sounded by posting that to a Maple Leafs fan group. But yeah, anyways, it's
I'm guessing that's where you stand too, right? Because it's like,
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Come on, is that really something to go on and on to write a massive novel on Facebook about? Like, Jesus, man.
Yeah, right. Another quick note before we get into the depth of our Maple Leafs talk: ECHL expansion is happening as well. For those who don't listen to the Spit and Checklist podcast, they have purchased a team. They are part of an ownership group that has purchased a team, which I believe will be, what is it, the Greensboro Gargoyles?
Yes.
I believe that's the name. So anyways, that pretty neat. I know, is it Savannah that they're also getting a team in?
Let me double check that.
Yeah, I think there was two expansion teams coming or what have you for next season. But yeah, the East Coast Hockey League will be expanding, so a lot more opportunity for players to continue their hockey career, which, we're a players podcast. We always want that stuff to happen. We want these guys to play as long as they can. Hell, I would have loved to play for a few more years, but I was never that good. So
as of right now, I think it's just Greensboro, but Savannah is one of those places as well.
Yeah,
I mean, they're looking at expanding or putting another team, an NHL team in Georgia, or so trying to try that again, see if that works out. But yeah, no, I mean, you want to start off small, start off with this and see how it works out and how it plays out again. So yeah. Definitely a good opportunity.
Absolutely. Anyways, let's get into some Leaf talk here, buddy. Let's break down the week that was. It's obviously their longest losing streak of the season. They're 3 games down.
And that's weird to say too. I was going to point that out. It's weird to say that their longest winning streak or losing streak this season has only reached like 3 games.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like something that you would want to necessarily get too upset about, but we're going to get into it. It's the way they lost in those 3 games that's the major issue.
Yeah, so like you said, it's it's tough to look at it and say like this is the worst losing streak of the season for the Maple Leafs at 3 games. And you're going to have the people that are dwelling on the fact that they lost 3 games in a row. You're going to have the people that are jumping all over the Leafs to get something done right away. And it's not time to panic. They're sitting first in the Atlantic Division, 1 point up on the Florida Panthers. You can't sit here and say, oh my God, we need to freak out. We need to make a move. We need to make some changes. You've had Austin Matthews out of the lineup for, let's call it the majority of the season. You've had Jake McCabe go down. You've had Max Domi go down. You've had Calle Yarncroke out of the lineup all year. You've had, you name it. You've had Ekman Larson miss a few games. You've had Anthony Stolarz out of the lineup. Like he was your go-to goalie at the beginning of the year. You can't be disappointed right now at where this team is at. 3 games, yes, it's not something you want to get into a routine of, especially as you head into the playoffs, because we all know 3 games is a tough one to come back from. That said, I'd rather have it now than have it near the tail end of the season. All of a sudden, we're talking about confidence and chemistry going into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So 3 games is not panic time. It's a chance for the Leafs to try and figure things out under the Berube system, figure out their power play. But like you said, the one thing you want to take note of is that in no way were these close games. You lost to Carolina 6-3
after 2-0 lead.
Yeah, after a 2-0 lead, Jordan Staal looked great. The team just fell apart, didn't play well defensively, didn't control the puck, didn't control the pace. Then, a day's rest, you go on and you play Vancouver. You lose 3-0 to Vancouver. Can't get the offense going once again. And then you get 2 days off, and all of a sudden you lose 4-1 to the Dallas Stars, albeit the Dallas Stars are a strong team this season as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's, I'm not as hurt about that one. But, the fact is, multi-goal losses in 3 straight over a 6-day span. That's what you have to be worried about. And we'll get into the post-game comments in a second here, but I want to get your takeaways first of like what you saw from these 3 games that 1, you would change, but 2, that you want to make a focus for this team moving forward, hopefully coming out of this 3-game losing streak tomorrow against New Jersey.
Yeah, what I saw was just sloppy play all around. And it's like the game against Carolina and against Dallas, they got off to really good starts. I mean, they controlled the pace and tempo in the first 10 minutes of each game. And then after that, it's like one mistake happened and the mistakes piled on and on and on. And it's kind of disappointing because, they were out Jake McCabe at that point because he did go down with that upper body / head injury against the Philadelphia Flyers. That was a huge loss. And you know how big of an impact he has on that blue line. But you kind of weathered that storm and you had a good start. What happened to that afterwards? It's like they lost their focus. They were trying to get too cute. Power play was just not clicking. Actually, it's been abysmal to this point. Mm-hmm. It's like they lost their footing. And then as soon as one mistake happened, everything unraveled. And it went back to like mistakes that were kind of like happening under the Sheldon Keefe, Mike Babcock era, where one mistake happened and it just, it was just a massive snowball effect and they couldn't come back from that at all. That was basically the same thing against Vancouver. Allowed the first goal in the opening seconds of the first period, allowed the second goal of the dying seconds of the second period, and then the opening goal of the third. And mind you that some of the penalty calls in that game and even against the Dallas Stars were absolutely atrocious. It still doesn't make up the fact that their play, their management, their awareness, it was just completely off. And then again, Joseph Woll probably didn't look as strong as he did against Dallas like he has previous times. Didn't have it against Carolina. Probably needed to make a few saves there. But overall, I mean, like they were just disconnected, and that's usually not the case with this team. And one thing that I would change right now is obviously with the way that Marner has played, the way that Nylander has struggled recently, you got to change something up at this point. I mean, you don't want to, again, you saw the chemistry of what happened when Matthews is in the lineup, when Matthews is out of the lineup. You know how well they can play. But even in that situation against the Stars where they're trying to get an extra goal, they had the 5-man power play unit. They weren't clicking at all. Like they're just being too cute, trying to set up the fancy play, trying to get something going. But meanwhile, they should just go back to basics, getting pucks on net, keep them low, get deflections, get those second or third opportunities, crash the net. I just think that they need to do something. Obviously, they need to change up their power play because that's not going at all. But also, you got to shake up the forward lines in a way that you have that balance and you have one of those three players that's like carrying their own line, because we've seen that happen in the postseason, seen that happen in the past where they do carry their own line and it does work out. And then if they, play well and they earn the coach's trust again, then they can move back up into their original spot. Because right now, Marner has gotten into a bit of a funk. Nylander has gone very, very cold offensively. Not so many goals, not so many, or the production just hasn't been there. Matthews has been tearing it up since he came back, so that's a good sign. But these last 3 games, they have been snake bitten big time, and they need to change that fast.
Man, it's kind of it's the same idea that we've talked about on a number of episodes recently about Matthews coming back in the lineup and it becoming a bit of a one-man show. And it's not Matthews' fault by any means, but the focus is more to try and drive the play through him rather than moving it around the way they did. The power play worked when he was not in the lineup because there was less focus on trying to drive the play in his direction. And whether that's the conversation that's had, but I agree with you. I think Nylander's been kind of post on that third line, second line, not really having a consistent line mates the last little while. And I think in all honesty, it's hindered his production overall. And this is a guy who's off to an incredible start to the season. Again. A guy that we were talking about was in the top 3 for goals for behind Draisaitl and was it McKinnon? Draisaitl and McKinnon, I believe.
He was up there.
Yeah,
he was one of the more dangerous sharpshooters in that game, and he was leading. He was in the lead for the goal categories. Like he was
within 3 of Draisaitl at one point. I believe he was within 1. He was within.
I think
one
so.
Of
yeah, he was closing the gap. The gap was very, very close.
I mean, regardless, like you have to look at that and say, what are we doing wrong here that we're not helping him drive his offense? And Nylander's not the guy that's going to carry his line. He just that's not from a production standpoint. He's not going to carry his line. He's there to produce offensively, and he needs that little bit of a sidekick to just boost that offense and give him the opportunities. He'll get his chances on his own. There's no question. But to maximize what you're getting from this guy, you need to find a way to get him on a line that's going to support that offensive growth. Joseph Woll, I agree with you. I think there was instances where he needed to make stops, and this is the part of the goaltending duo when we started the year with Stolarz and Woll. This was part of it that kind of worried me a little bit because there was such a lack of experience between the two of them. Stolarz coming out and having the year that he had, or that he's had so far, obviously that was a focal point. And I think it was a surprise to a lot of people. Maybe not to Stolarz himself, but it was a surprise to a lot of people. The issue now is that he's coming back from knee surgery, albeit whether it was
his movement and timing may be a little bit off.
It's going to be a little bit off. Now you're going to rely heavily on Woll in the second part of the season, and the lack of consistency from Joseph Woll worries me. There was comparisons made early in the season that it was an Ullmark-Swayman type of duo. I'm worried about if there's more pressure put on Woll in the back end of the season, how he's going to respond. I don't think he's not able to do it. I think he's extremely capable. He's an extremely capable NHL goaltender. That's not the question. He's also a guy that gets in his head very easily. And I think these last few games that he's played is a prime example of how he can go from 100 to 50 in like a span of a period.
I agree with what you're saying right there. Yeah. The difference between that Swayman-Ullmark tandem was that your chances of winning were guaranteed very much when Boston put any of those two guys in net. No doubt about that. Obviously, it would be probably a different story this season with Swayman struggling and Ullmark, kind of struggling at the start, but picking his game up as well. albeit on different teams. But right now, I think with Wall, yeah, I kind of get the sense that he does get a little bit hard on himself. I will say that. But at the same time, where I do feel that kind of sense of worry where maybe that inexperience is going to get to him, what we saw in the playoffs last year and even the year before that when Ilya Samsonov went down and he took the reins both times, maybe he thrives in those high pressure situations. I think maybe because it's the regular season, maybe not to say that he's trying to be a little bit lax, but he needs to be on point. But I feel like maybe these games he knows that maybe he could build himself up a little bit more where his confidence could get to the point where, you know what, it's playoff time. I've been in this situation before. Regular season's behind me. I can go out and do what I did. Because even at points during the regular season last season, he didn't look all himself. Like there are points where he struggled, gave up goals where he should have had, especially in the opening minutes. But come playoff time, he was lights out. He shut the door. So I think what you're banking on is, this is a little bit of a risky move to think that, is that if Stolarz is still maybe not 100% and the Wall comes in come playoff time, you're banking on the Joseph Wall that you saw in those last 3 games against the Boston Bruins, where he was absolutely dynamic, lights out, tracking the puck well, making highlight reel saves, 10-bell saves. So that to me is the best case scenario. But yeah, if it's worst case scenario, you have the inexperience of both guys as starters. I will say this, at least Stolarz has a resume of being a backup goaltender in his career, although you would like to see more than a stint of 27, 28, 29 games over a career. And I think it was getting to that point, but again, that injury, that freak injury, which could have happened to anybody. And I think the fact that it was just like I think it was just to like get out like a loose piece of material. So it wasn't like an ACL
was like debris,
injury,
right?
It was debris.
Yeah,
it wasn't an ACL, MCL, sprain, tear, whatever, where you need to be a little bit extra cautious. So I think this situation, it kind of alleviates the fact that it's kind of serious, but it's not as severe as a tear. And I think that maybe when he does come back, maybe he just needs to ease his way in and then get that mobility and movement in where he's back on point. But yeah, it's one of those gambles that you need to take. And if Walt is able to find his game and surpass Stolarz, if he isn't able to, and get back to that playoff type mindset that he had last season, you're in a good spot. But then again, you don't know until you get there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I'm not expecting miracles out of Walt, but we've talked about this 100 times. Is like when you get to the playoffs, there's going to be games where you need your goaltender to step up. You need your goaltender to steal a game for you. And that's what the Maple Leafs need, is they need guys that are going to come in and steal games. We saw it early in the year. We saw Wall steal a couple games. We saw Stolarz steal a couple games. That's great in the regular season. The playoffs are different, man. And it's going to be, this is where you need somebody like Stolarz and somebody like Wall to take that next step and steal a couple games for you. In saying all that, there were a couple of comments recently after losses where, you don't question the players' drive, but maybe you question their overall state of mind in terms of how they're seeing the team's overall play.
The assessment,
yeah. Obviously, the first one being Mitch Marner, noting that, he felt like the team's effort was great in one of their 3 losses over the last week. Said that they had some good things going, yada yada yada. That same game, you had Berube come out and basically say that they stunk it up, and you had Brandon Tanev or Chris Tanev come out and say, we were horrible. So, the idea that there's these different, and to me as a fan of the team, I would rather see a player come out and say, yeah, we were shit tonight, than a player come out and say, yeah, kind of sugarcoat, hey, yeah, we had our opportunities, we just didn't capitalize, they capitalized on theirs, cliche, right? I would rather not hear the Mitch Marner BS that comes with a 6-3 loss where you had a 2-0 lead than I would rather like hearing what Berube says and what Tanev says and having them come out and say, you know what? Yeah, we we were not good. There was passengers on the flight today, and they were just sat there and enjoyed while the rest of the team tried to get it done, and we can't do that. So that was the first comment. The second being Nylander. Was it today after practice? Anyways, I believe it was today after practice.
It was today, yeah.
Yeah. And he noted that, it's only 3 games. All good teams go through these runs. It was only 3 games. What's the big deal? So before I ask you what your take is on these two, here's what I take from that Nylander stuff. And we all know the personality that is Nylander now. And he does well with Toronto media. And I think that's why this doesn't worry me as much as it comes across. As a fan, it's frustrating as hell to hear players, your top players who aren't having success over the last 3 games, come out and spew that kind of cliche BS that you're going to get. At the same time, I get where he's coming from in that he just wants to wash away the thought of the 3 losses and, hey, we're going to move on to the next one. It's 3 losses. We haven't had 3 losses all year. We're at the top of the Atlantic Division. What are you guys worried about? And I understand that, and I can stand with that. But from a team that has done fuck all when it comes to success in the playoffs, success overall, success as a unit, to hear 2 of your top players come out and make those kind of comments, that's where the frustration stems from Leafs Nation, from the media, from yourself, from me. That's where the frustration comes from. So why is it a big deal? The big deal is that you've done absolutely nothing come playoff time to make us believe that 3 games won't turn into a first round exit. That's the big deal. So with that said, Peter, your takeaways from Mitch Marner and William Nylander coming from this 3-game losing streak.
That is why this team has only 1 playoff series win over these last 9 seasons. Yeah, I get it's the regular season. I get that, and especially in Nylander's case too. Yeah, this is the long stretch of losses that you've had. Other teams have gone through it too, kind of thing, where you just want to put it behind you. But to say no big deal, it is a big deal, because it's this kind of mindset where you need to get prepped for in the playoffs, where you need to play like you're pissed off. You need to play like you're angry, where 1 loss is not good enough. I mean, 1 loss or 1 game in the playoffs is basically the equivalent to 2 in a regular season. It's basically like the same thing for a suspension kind of thing. If you have 1 loss, you're already, I mean, you don't want to say in a hole already, but you got to dig yourself out of that quickly before you go even deeper. And with Nylander's comments to say that, no big deal, it kind of sits with me, because of the fact that it's no big deal that the fact that you've had, or the way you've lost in those 3 games were absolutely atrocious. It's no big deal the fact that you've gone cold yourself and you've had flybys, bad plays, bad giveaways, bad attempts to come back on the back check, where you've actually been a little bit more consistent of that in the past. That, like you said, that to me, that pisses a lot of people off. And even online right now, I was scrolling through it. Everyone was saying the exact same thing. This is why this team hasn't won anything. If you want to be a winner, you need to go out and tell it like it is. Like, I don't understand even with the Mitch Marner comments, which I'll get to in a second, or I would have lumped them both together right now with Marner as well. I get you want to be optimistic. I get you want to calm everything down right now because it is 3 games. But again, these 3 games have been the absolutely probably 3 worst games that you've played all season. And for Nylander to just basically shrug it off, and for Marner to sugarcoat everything, saying that, yeah, I liked your effort in a 3-0 loss, where your power play was absolutely garbage. You gave up the first and last goal of the period 3 times, and you had nothing going for you. I don't understand what's wrong with blunt honesty and being realistic. Because if I was in Mitch Marner's situation, and I even wrote about this, his post-game comments do not reflect what happened in that game at all. You can see that. Yeah, they probably had a slight edge in underlying analytics, shots on goal, what have you. But it didn't amount to anything. There was no quality whatsoever. And obviously the Canucks capitalized on theirs. For me, I just don't understand why they're so hesitant in being realistic and not being able to come out and call everything like it is. Like, Mitch Marner basically said we're looked upon as gods in the city. Okay, well, now that you said that, now you got to live up to that expectation right now. I mean, yeah, we have a high standard to how players are going to play, and we expect that every single time. We're not seeing that from Marner, and we're not definitely seeing that from his comments. We're not seeing that from Nylander's comments, and from Berube coming in wanting to preach accountability and, having that mindset where you need to be able to have that consistent work ethic every single time. That accountability wasn't there. The work ethic hasn't been there. And for them to just basically shrug it off, yeah, it is disappointing. And this is why you don't get anywhere in the playoffs, because honestly, how many times in a regular season have we seen players call out their effort early on, even in October, November? I mean, Colorado was going through a slump. I could tell you right now, Nathan McKinnon probably wasn't happy about that. Are you going to tell me Connor McDavid was okay with the fact that they were once again having a repeat start like they did last season? Hell no. These guys want to win. They're winners. They at least have that mindset where they're going to say, hey, this is absolutely trash the way we're playing. We need to dig ourselves out of this. We need to find a way. And it's now up to Toronto's big guys to do that, because right now they're not showing it with their comments.
Is this not like this is like a reference to the narrative? It's a bigger picture, right? Like, it's professional athletes now have a swagger that they almost get without actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Right? We've talked about in the past about, these big contracts that are handed out before they actually do anything. They're paying them for what they're going to do over the next 8 seasons. And this is another example of it, right? Like, I just watched the interview as you were talking there a little bit about the one where Nylander said, it's only 3 games. What's the big deal? Well, he's standing there, earrings in, chain
he's
down
got his whole
chest,
post-game
shirt off.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm all for the personality. And if that's what you have to do to get by in a market like Toronto, then so be it. But back it up.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Don't back it up.
You can't sit there and have that kind of swagger when you have done absolutely nothing. And you talk about Mitch Marner, like, give him his due, right? Like, over the last 4 games, he's got 4 points, 4 assists.
He's been productive all season. It's just the fact that with his comments every single time when he's in front of the camera, he doesn't choose his words wisely, and that to me is still a problem.
Yeah. So then let's go back to Nylander for a second here. So over his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, over his last 7 games, 1 goal. That's it.
Yep.
1 goal. That's it. So 3 games
is a big deal. No big deal for the fact that you've gone that long.
It's absolutely a big deal. You've done 7 games with just 1 point. 1 point on a team that needs you to get things done and get things going and be a productive asset throughout the season, so that we have confidence that you're going to do it come playoff time. And you're standing there, all men's health cover type of shit, and you're saying, what's the big deal? I like accountability. That's what the big deal is. Accountability. You've got people going into those stands paying $500 a seat that want to see a team that's going to win. And even in talking about the boos, Marner and Nylander both said, we just block it out. Maybe that's part of the problem, right?
You can't block it out. You got to hear their frustration, because you're playing for the fans.
All you want, you can call out the platinum ghosts and talk about how they're not there to start the periods and what yada yada yada. There are people that are paying $500 a seat to sit upper bowl, to watch you guys have 1 goal in 7 games, and you're paid how much?
You're taking up at least 40+% of the team's cap space.
But you know what I mean? Like, and we're gonna get into this conversation, over the next number of months, because Mitch Marner is going to be in the same situation. We're going to sit here and we're going to say, yeah, you know what? Mitch Marner was top 10 in scoring this year. He was right there along with the McKinnons and the Draisaitl's in terms of points.
But probably what did he do during playoffs?
Yeah, he's going to probably have a career year. But what have you done for this fan base?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the product on the ice, what have you done for the fan base outside of your individual numbers that you've posted from season to season? Why should we give you $11 million? That's going to be the question that's going to be asked. And it's gonna play into a narrative where it's gonna be like, well, Marner doesn't want to be here. The team's not willing to give him the money. Where are we gonna meet? There's gonna be a ton of headlines and narratives that come at it. You and I are gonna be writing about it. I guarantee that we each write something about Marner in the next several months over at the Hockey Writers, where we're questioning his ability and his willingness to be in Toronto, his interest in being in Toronto. Where is he gonna go? What's the number? We are guaranteed, like, Spencer Lazzary's going to write something. We're all going to write something over there.
I will say this. We're not even halfway through the season, and the contract talks have already been beaten to death at this point.
Exactly. But the question that's always going to come back is, what have you done for us?
Mm-hmm.
What have you done for us? I know it's not entirely his fault. He's missed some games each season, but you haven't had a 100-point season. You haven't got it done in playoffs. Why should we give you $11 million? We rode that bus with John Tavares, right? Mm-hmm. And no hate on John Tavares. Like, he's had a strong season thus far, 42 points in 44 games. But and a 20-goal season, we should mention as well. His 15th 20-goal season.
Mm-hmm.
But why dish out that kind of money when we're not getting the production come, like, at the most important points of the season? And that's playoffs. If you can't get me past the first round, then I'm going to find somebody that is. And that's got to be the mentality of Brad Treliving. That's got to be the mentality of Leafs Nation, even if we don't want to give up on Marner. Because I'll admit it, we've seen it before. There's a Marner jersey on the wall. It's not like I'm not here to see him succeed. Absolutely, I am. The difference is I would love to. I'm 36, man. I'd love to see a cup in the next 10 years.
Yeah. I think the closest thing we've ever seen was that 0-2 playoffs where they lost to Carolina in 6 games.
That's right.
That's probably the closest we've ever seen.
So, I don't know. The comments do strike a nerve.
Yeah.
At the same time, I feel like it's a bit of a defense mechanism to Toronto media.
Obviously, yeah.
Right?
100% it is.
I don't know. I anybody that's watching right now or watching at some point or listening, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these comments. Like, how does it make you feel when you hear them come out after the game and say, it's just 3 games, what's the big deal? Let us know.
Nonchalantly say that, I thought we did really good in a 3-0 loss where we had nothing going for us.
Yeah, is your mentality just, it's regular season, who cares, it's 3 games? Or is your mentality like, yeah, you know what? That kind of pisses me off too. What can I do? Like, why would they come out and say that it's only 3 games? That's 6 points you could have got through those 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So let us know in the comments, or let us know on X or whatever. I'd love to hear how that makes other people feel.
Final point for me is, obviously every single game matters, but what if this stretch of 3 games is the difference between first place and, let's say, second?
Home ice advantage.
Home ice advantage, but that means you still have home ice advantage, but you still have to have. You got to go through either. It's most likely going to be the Florida Panthers, but you would have to go through the Florida Panthers. You want that first place seed, so that way you get home ice in this first and second round, possibly third, and have the teams come after you, not go after them.
Here you go,
That's
Jesse.
just my final spot.
Jesse Corville Lynch over the Hockey Writers is writing a piece right now. I guess Kipper, Bourne, and McKee are talking about the same thing. They react to Nylander's brushing off the 3-game losing streak, with one of them saying it's not 3 games, Willie, it's 8 years. So check that out over the Hockey Writers. I'm sure Jesse will have that up very shortly. He's a fantastic writer as well. So
we're on the ball with that comment, and Jesse's on the point with getting to that topic.
Yeah. So. Look forward to see what he has to say about it. Before we move on here, just a quick word from the great sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. For me this week, I would put my money on Jahmyr Gibbs. I would put my money on David Montgomery coming back for the Detroit Lions as they look to make it big after their Week 1 playoff bye. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. And just a quick shout out to, I don't know if Mitch will see it, but we got the new Maple Leafs DraftKings sweater as well. They partnered with the NHL to create some great sweaters, some great t-shirts, some great hats. So if you're in the market for a new sweater, it's nice and cold here in the north of our lovely neighbors down in the States. It's very cold actually today in London, so grab a sweater. It's frigid, man. It is frigid. It's perfect. It's perfect hockey weather, and obviously with the Leafs got their outdoor practice coming up in a week and a half as well. So
perfect weather for that.
Yeah, hopefully it'll warm up slightly for people going out there. But yeah, check out DraftKings Sportsbook. Make sure you use code THPN. Also check out the DraftKings new NHL gear as well. These sweaters are nice and comfy. They're nice and They fit the big guy right now, so that's always a good note to have as well. Anyways, we got to talk about let's talk about injuries first. Let's talk about injuries. So we got McCabe back to skating. Stolarz should be skating within the next week or so. We mentioned Matthews already. He's back in the lineup. He's playing well. He's looked good thus far. Still maybe not 100%, but he's got to be right around that 90 to 95% now. And then obviously today at practice, John Tavares goes down after a collision with Chris Tanev in the corner on a power play drill. So I mean, kind of the power play just hasn't done anything for the Leafs this year. In fact, it's taken them out. So how big is this loss to John Tavares if, in fact, he's going to miss time? And how big is the news that Jake McCabe could be coming back right around the corner? The guy's a warrior, and that Anthony Stolarz is jumping back on the ice in the next week or so to get skating and get back into game shape.
Yeah, because yesterday I made a comment during the game, they need to work on the power play because something needs to change if they haven't figured out whatever's working right now isn't going to work for them in the future, then they're never going to learn on how to change that. They actually started practicing about this today, and then all of a sudden JT gets injured. Kind of sounded like we all saw the clip, the skates kind of collided with each other, and then he did the splits. He kind of fell awkwardly on his other leg as well. Hopefully it isn't too serious. I guess they're still going to reevaluate him. I guess tomorrow, let him rest up, let him heal up. He was able to get on his own accord, get up on his own 2 feet. So hopefully that's a good sign. But then again, you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. He could be day to day. Don't know. Just wish him that with JT, considering how he's been one of the more consistent offensive contributors. You mentioned the 20 goals to 42 points. Just absolutely on another level this year. And it seems like age isn't slowing him down whatsoever. If he's going to miss some time, that's going to be a big blow to the Maple Leafs, especially up the middle where they're kind of weak. McCabe coming back. I mean, I'm writing something a little bit about this as well on the Leafs play overall and without him, but with him returning as well. You kind of get the sense that they really need him in the lineup. And it's funny because Sportsnet Stats came out with a graphic. I believe it was either yesterday or today, where actually, it's been almost close to full 24 hours where they had the Leafs points percentage, with and without key players. Matthews, Marner, and Riley are well above 600, close to 800 winning percentage, or at least points percentage. But with McCabe out of the lineup, they're 661 with him and 412 without him. So their points percentage with him out, they're basically he's an important piece to this lineup. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So with him on the eventual return coming in, skating for the first time with Chris Tanev, looking really good. Game time decision. Hopefully that's a good start or a good starting point for him to come back because they desperately need him. And in regards to Stolarz, we knew like we're in that point right now. We're in that 4 to 6 week mark where he was about to come back. So hopefully him being around the team, coming back, doing some light skating is a good step in the right direction for him, because I think that, with the way that Wall has played, you really need him to get something going. And if Wall is still going to struggle and Stolarz comes back in and it's lights out, then that's going to be your guy that you're probably going to be going forward with in terms of getting, key points, key wins, and move further up and create that separation in the standings. So, some positives, but also some negatives at the same time with JT going down.
Yeah. Is it safe to say, like I think we all knew how strong McCabe was as a defender, like block shots, made hits, lost a few teeth. But is it safe to say, like, he may be undervalued by people outside of the Maple Leafs organization?
Absolutely. I don't think he's getting as much recognition, or he should be getting more recognition, because of the way that him and Tanev have basically performed as, I'm going to say, the top pair, because Morgan Rielly has looked good at times, but he's also looked invisible at times. And obviously you want your top pairing defender to have like some offensive production, but the way that they're shutting things down, the way they're still breaking out, getting at least some opportunities and creating those chances in the offensive zone, I think it's huge. And I think that McCabe has been a big part for that, because he can eat the minutes. He can play up against tough competition. He excels in getting the lanes along with Tanev. He's physical. He doesn't back down from anybody, as we saw with Hathaway, but probably should have backed away from that Garnet Hathaway fight. See last week's episode. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think he's one of the more essential figures and pillars on that blue line, probably more so than Morgan Rielly right now, because of what he's being asked to do right now and thriving in Craig Berube's system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like with the 3 losses that have happened since he went out, I think he's incredibly undervalued as a defenseman, just in terms of what he brings to that team, right? What he allows other players to kind of get away with and maybe cheat a little bit, because he's back there and you can count on him to get it done. Very much like a TJ Brody was prior to kind of his like downslide over the last season or two. Just with a little bit more physicality and a little bit more like blocking shots and such. Like I think McCabe's got the upside on that. Yeah, I think Tavares is going to be a big loss if in fact he is out a little bit. Like they said, they're going to reevaluate it. He looked like was in a fair amount of pain, the way he kind of stayed down after the collision with Tanev. That said, for those who did not see the video, I will post it to our Instagram as well. You can check that out. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's not fun when we're talking about injury woes for the Maple Leafs this season. So just another addition to that, if that's in fact the case. Obviously, with Stolarz on the mend, that's a huge bonus. Obviously, with McCabe coming back, that's a huge bonus as well. Kind of like those guys that were out of the lineup and their deadline moves without actually making a move. The other one I want to talk to you about is there's speculation that the Leafs may be interested in a John Klingberg, who is set to try and make his NHL return. We all know how this went when they signed him. We kind of have another one in the organization right now with Yanni Hakanpää and not knowing what the hell's going on with the Hakanpää situation. Should this even be speculation? Like, should we even be commenting on this? Like, is this even an area of conversation that should exist?
I get that you want to try and bring him back because of the way that he could quarterback a power play, but even then last year, power play was still hit or miss, even with Klingberg on the back end. So I don't know if that's going to move the needle or not. But yeah, given how you're seeing what's happening with McCabe, that's been out of the lineup twice, Hakanpää. Obviously, it's wise to address the defensive situation because of some of the injuries that you're seeing right now. But I don't want to take that risk on John Klingberg because of what we've seen in the past. Even when he was healthy, he was hit or miss in terms of his decision-making, management, everything like that. Yeah, he's got a bomb from the point. He's got the ability to get pucks on net, but at the same time, his health and, defensive awareness is still very worrisome. And I just don't think that he's the type of player that will thrive in Craig Berube's system. He wants those guys that are accountable, that could shut things down defensively, that can be mobile. But at the same time, he doesn't just want offensive-minded players. He wants players that could come back and help out and be aware of their surroundings. And I don't think Klingberg is definitely going to be that guy. I mean, if there's going to be someone else out on the market that you could, like in the instance that Jake McCabe goes down again, you want to rely on somebody that you could move up in the lineup and you could get results out of. Don't think Klingberg is going to be that guy. I get wanting to try and get him in on a cheap 1-year deal to try and prove himself again. I just don't see it happening. The Maple Leafs are far too familiar with that. It's the hip resurfacing surgery that Patrick Kane had. He's looking like he's finding his way back. But Patrick Kane is Patrick Kane. Klingberg is a whole different situation. I just think that it's a little bit risky. I know the Maple Leafs are in on him. I think the Edmonton Oilers have moved up as like a top spot for him right now. It's just I feel that if you could get a two-way defender with good mobility, I think that's going to be a better move than John Klingberg at this point.
Yeah, I guess my question is should D really be the focus, right? Like,
no,
there's not a lot of room on the Leafs cap to make major moves unless you move out pieces like Reeves or Calle Yarncroke and obviously you can't trade a player when he's on injured reserve either. So, yeah, I don't think that should be the focus, and I was kind of shocked to see that the speculation had the Leafs as a potential suitor for John Klingberg, but I mean, Tree Living's got his goals and he's got his the pieces that he wants to attack, and by all means, if that's what he thinks the Leafs need, I disagree with it, and I'm sure if he does make that move, we'll sit here and probably call him out for it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's where the Leafs are best suited in terms of trying to add a piece. So, anyways, regardless of that, John Klingberg is a conversation in Leafs Nation right now. Feel free to tell us what your thoughts are. Before we go any further, I just want to remind those folks who are watching right now, head over to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. And tune in weekly as we continue to break down Leafs. We continue to break down the NHL. Even when the Leafs are out of the playoffs, we still do some shows. We've done it all season long, all summer long last year as well. So make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. I'm going to kind of skip over the power play woes because I think we kind of touched on that a little bit. I want to talk about possible deadline moves because we are getting to that point in the season where the speculation is going to start to swirl. And I just mentioned some names: Reeves, Calle Yarncroke. Obviously, David Kampf was there in the preseason as a possible trade option. Nick Robertson's got to be a guy that you think might or could be on his way out, given the situation of the contract last offseason. What are your thoughts on the Leafs at this deadline? Are they looking to bring in some more depth? Are they looking to move a guy like Nick Robertson to give him a fresh start somewhere else and maybe bring in a piece? They've showcased him fairly well now that he's found chemistry on that third line. But what are the Leafs looking to do this trade deadline?
Yeah, obviously the forward, I mean, like we talked about before, I don't think defense is going to be a priority unless you feel like you need to make a move if a player's out long-term, like a Jake McCabe, to try and insert into that lineup and then shore up your defense. But definitely it's going to be up front. It's going to be that forward unit that's going to be more of the focus. And obviously you're looking to the left wing. You're looking up the middle because now if John Tavares is gone, what's going to happen there? I mean, are you good? You could probably move Max Domi up, but at the same time, are you going to feel like he's better suited up the middle or on the wing in the playoffs? So you got to find common ground of where Max Domi is going to be later on. I mean, if you're looking at names, there's quite a few. I know TSN updated their trade bait board. I mean, like there are some names that really do stand out in a good way. Like if you're looking for a potential pieces up the middle of the ice, you're looking at probably like Trent Frederick on the Boston Bruins, who was a 40-point player last year. Obviously, Bruins on a downswing this season, but he's got that bite, he's got that edge, he's got that energy that would fit in well in like a third line role in Craig Berube's system. I mean, basically the way that Boston plays is the way that Craig Berube wants his team to play as well. So there's that. You're still looking at other names they were connected to before: Yanni Gourde, Brandon Tanev, possibly. One thing that I'm seeing right now too, and his name has come up just recently, and that's Jake Evans too. I mean, I don't know if Montreal is willing to move him or even deal with a potential rival, and they're starting to move into the playoff spot right now. But if Jake Evans is made available, he's on pace to surpass the season total that he had in 2001 or 21-22, where he had 29 points. He already has 23 right now in 43 games. So if you're looking for kind of that, bottom six type centerman that can have some speed, have some grit to his game as well, I'd look at him as a potential fit up the middle of the ice as well. Obviously, if you try to find some, help on the wing too, it's going to be a big addition because the Maple Leafs could use a little bit more offense. I'm not saying that they're going after like a big name like a Chris Kreider, because I think that carries a lot of, question marks itself. But with the names that they could possibly target, even Justin Brazeau, I know that he was in the Maple Leaf system before. I know they let him walk. I don't know if Boston wants to let him go, but if the Maple Leafs have every opportunity to try and bring him back, because he was a name that they had signed before and then let go because of, contract situations were a murky time a few years back. But I think that this is a player that had a lot of tremendous upside with the size and the pace and the ability to crash the net. So they want to get big. They want to get fast. They want some offense. There are some names that are like out there that could provide some steady secondary scoring, but could bring that type of player that Berube wants.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. This is one of the best times of year for me, because I love getting the knowledge of which scouts are going to which games and kind of speculating a little bit of what the possible moves are. It worked out a couple years back when they got Giordano. I know we talked about that, and that's where I came up with my outside insider term. It's suited us fairly well over the last couple of seasons. We've actually kind of broken a few stories in terms of like what the possibilities of moves are. So it's been fun. It's definitely, I mean, any hockey fan, it's a fun time of year, right? It's obviously not fun for the players because their names are swirling in rumors. So I feel for them, but from a fan standpoint, from the standpoint of a writer, we get an opportunity to kind of dive into what the Leafs need and where they might go to get it. So it's going to be an interesting time of year. The Leafs certainly need another piece to kind of take it to that next level. They're on the verge though, Peter, and I think that's the thing that people have to focus on. This is one of the best defensive cores when they're healthy that the Leafs have had in a number of years. Now that we've seen it, we could speculate all off season all we wanted about, is this one of the best defensive cores we've ever seen? And I think we asked that same question to David Alter leading into the season, but this is a good group.
It is.
The goal now is to find that extra level in terms of secondary scoring, because we're seeing that the top guys can't always get it done. Mm-hmm. And have guys that are ready to step in when injuries do happen, because we all know come playoff time, injuries do happen. So is it a Klingberg? Is it, maybe a Jake Evans? There's a lot of players out there that the Leafs can look at. It's going to come down to Brad Treliving and what he wants to do. But I think right now, it seems for the most part, the focus is going to be trying to add that other depth center that can kind of solidify what you have down the middle and give you a little bit of I mean, Yanni Gourde's a guy, like you said. Yanni Gourde's a guy that keeps coming up in conversations. He's been a target of the Leafs before. So it'll be interesting to see how many scouts make it out to Seattle games over the next little while to see what they can go after. But
exactly. And one more point too. I know a lot of people will probably want a top 6 forward. I just don't feel like if you're going to give up prospects and a first round pick for a top 6 forward, you're doing it for term and it's a little bit younger, not for for names like Kyle Palmieri, even names like Brock Nelson up the middle of the ice. I just don't quite trust at this point, because if you're willing to give up first round picks for mediocre production early on in this season, then you're doing yourself a disservice and you're not scouting the right names at this point. He probably could pop off on the Maple Leafs, but at the same time, I just don't know because he's been cold all season.
Yeah, you got to think long term as well, and you don't want to end up like the Pittsburgh Penguins, where your depth in terms of prospects has kind of gone right out the window over the last few years, and now it's time to build it back up. You don't want to have that just to possibly go on a run. You need to know that you're gonna take it to that next level, and that's when you give up first round picks for those pieces. But the Leafs in recent drafts have done well in terms of finding those pieces. Fraser Minton, Matthew Nyes, Easton Cowan, and you need to continue to build that while maintaining, a competitiveness at the NHL level, so that you can give your fans something to cheer about come playoff time. So that said, I think that's all we got for the week. I did just come out with a piece about why the Leafs should not trade Easton Cowan. I know it was a big conversation after the World Juniors. Trade Cowan, he had a terrible tournament. I had a piece just come out, so if you're interested in that, check it out over at the Hockey Writers. Outside of that, Peter, you got a lot of draft coverage coming up, and I'm pumped for this, man. Like, I always love watching the draft coverage come out. I don't think I've done a rankings at all this season. I went back and I was looking, like, after you did your rankings. I don't think I've done a single ranking, so it might be time. It might be time. Late January.
You never have enough rankings on our site, man.
Buddy, I love this time of year.
I
love this time of year. We're getting right into the heart of it, right? So
Guide is getting all prepped. Names are already getting listed now that the midterm rankings for NHL have come out. So it's not A, B, C, or whatever. It's actual 1, 2, 3. So you can start plugging in some numbers, and it's basically draft time. The next few weeks, looking to probably get started around then.
Beautiful. And should mention that Schaefer is number 1 in North American skaters now. So interesting, even though he got injured in the World Juniors. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting year. Outside of that, Peter, it's been a fun week. Not for the Leafs, but for us. We'll make sure that we have some good news for next week's episode as we hit 187. We're quickly approaching 200 here. Very pumped for it. Before we close it out, make sure you head over to the Hockey Podcast Network. They've got all kinds of podcasts, great hockey podcasts, great hockey content, lots of fantastic shows. Check out DraftKings, use code THPN. Check out the Indie Ale House in Toronto as well. And outside of that, it's been a fun week. So that's all we got for episode 186. Until next week, the Leafs, New Jersey Devils, tomorrow night. Let's get it done. Let's get a win. Go Leafs, go.